Good morning. Welcome back to Mold Stories. I'm Tammy, your favorite local neighborhood realtor located in Colorado, and I am a certified conscious healthy home real estate agent. And I've been driven to share stories of my community of fellow mold impacted wonderful humans who are dealing with this uphill battle of what's been going on in buildings. One of the niches that I've taken on this last year, as you've been following these stories, is realizing that I am helping people who are environmentally sensitive. And this has uncovered so many things. It's so important to share these stories. If you have questions at the end of this video, feel free to post them below. We are happy to answer them, or reach out to me directly. I'll make sure that your questions get answered. Today, I have Sophia Mellsop joining me, and I'm so excited to hear her story. These stories are challenging, and I just ask you to listen with an open heart. Know that what's shared here is not meant to be prescriptive. This is to give you hope, to give you insight, and to help you make choices in your journey of living in a building. Be empowering, feel empowered and be able to make choices that keep you safe. Sophia, would you start by telling us just a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thank you so much, Tammy, for doing this. I wish I had stories to hear as I kind of went through this journey. But yeah, so I'm native to Colorado. I grew up in a very small town, southwest corner of the state. Um, I grew up through this town, went 2 years in high school, and then I actually moved away from home when I was 15 to pursue a ballet career. So I did that for 3 years, pretty seriously, full time. And then I decided to switch directions, went to college, 1 year in Massachusetts, then came back to Colorado to finish my college degree. And then now I work in the private wealth industry, all here in Denver. Um, Now, of course, I know we're here talking about kind of the mold story, and the biotoxin illness story, and that's something that I've kind of I think unknowingly up until about 3 years ago struggled with pretty much all my life, until I kind of hit a breakthrough point.
Do you have, it's interesting because you're talking about looking backward and going, wait a minute, there's all these points that I was dealing with this. Is that right?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've always had, ever since I was a baby, I've had some digestion issues, and that's something that really has carried through me to varying degrees of intensity, um, throughout my childhood and early adulthood. And really, when I hit puberty, I started to really, it started to really get bad. And I didn't really know what was going on. Tried a bunch of different things, went to a lot of doctors who were like, oh, eat more fiber, drink more water,
Mm.
which I was drinking a lot of water and I did eat pretty healthy because I was in ballet. Um, and so, couldn't really find an answer and just kind of lived with it for a while. And then, I in ballet too, I think naturally that's just a hard place to be with one's body. We're dancing 8 hours plus a day. And I think also, had some issues in terms of body image that I think also affected just my relationship with my body and what what kind of what I kind of fed it to be its best self. And so I think that also probably impacted my experience with biotoxin illness because it was around that time that I started to get some other symptoms. I had a lot of anxiety, which I also think was just growing up in a very high pressure environment. But then I, experienced some hair loss, some different things that just kind of started to, I don't know, to kind of layer on top of my digestion issues. And then I went to college and things just got progressively worse. I was very prone to infections. I was kind of got to a place where, I would go to these workout classes and I would feel exhausted after, like would need to sleep for like the afternoon. I was just so depleted. I went down many different rabbit holes, went to different GI specialists for the digestion, for my exhaustion. I was thinking, oh, maybe I just need to eat more protein, or I don't know. I was like trying to do all the research and the Google deep dives. Couldn't figure it out up until, I started my second career in finance. And I decided to just take a different route and see a functional medicine practitioner. And so I went to someone who a family friend has been to here in the Colorado area and was diagnosed with CIRS. And that was like such an eye-opening moment because it just felt like all these random pieces of the puzzle that I could never figure out before it all made sense. Um, and then that launched a 3-year long road to what I still feel like I'm on the road to recovery in some ways, but certainly feeling a lot better. Yeah, that's kind of like the broad overview there on how I got to being diagnosed and having a bit more answers around things.
Yeah. I mean, being diagnosed is significant. There's a lot of people who never go to functional medicine doctors. They never take the journey with someone who is experienced and can test, right? And so to know that that's a really strong tool, there's a lot of functional medicine doctors out there who are starting to really wrap around biotoxin illness, whether it's mold or something else.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I it's really tough with the current healthcare system, and I think that's just such a thing that we all have stories with, and you're trying to find answers, and there's not a lot of guidance, right? Sometimes issues are looked in, at in kind of silos, right? Oh, you have a digestive issue, it's a problem with your digestion. Well, I also have this random infection, skin infection, like that's dealt with by someone else. Um, and so I'm really grateful that I just had a gut feeling like I am experiencing what I'm experiencing for a reason. I'm not just built this way. And that's
Mhm.
kind of the turning point in one way, was I went to a GI doctor, and they prescribed me a medicine that would cost $500 a month, um, $20 a day. Of course, finance me, did all the calculations. Um, and I was like, am I really paying $20 a day so I can poop every morning? That's crazy. And she was like, well, it could just be your constipation could just be a way that you're built. I'm thinking, I that just does not sound right. The way that I'm built is I struggle like this day in and day out. It just did not make sense. And so I'm really glad I just didn't give up and sought different opinions from different practitioners. And it's a long road, but yeah, really grateful I didn't just like accept the status quo.
Oh, me too. And the process of working with the functional medicine doctor, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So at first, I was pretty apprehensive. I had a consult call, and they were pretty upfront about how much it would cost out of pocket. And being a young person starting their career, it's a lot to stomach. But also, what's a lot to stomach is a pill that costs $500 a month.
Right.
So, and I kind of got to a point where it's like, you know what? I don't want to live like this. Like, an investment in my health is an investment in me and my life, and I just need to do it. And so I got over that hurdle, did a lot of different testing, more testing than I've ever done in my life. Stool tests, blood tests, gene tests, urine, I mean, breath test, everything.
Wow.
Um, and then I had scheduled a 3-hour doctor's appointment to go through all those results. And I remember when they scheduled me for 3 hours, I was like, oh, I mean, this isn't going to take 3 hours. It took 3 hours.
Yes.
And that was a big surprise because I'm used to going into the doctor, you get your 10 minutes, they, oh, prescribe you something and you're on your way. So that was a new experience. I actually had my mom come with me because she's kind of invested in this journey as well.
Sure.
Um, and the doctor just went through all the different tests and then kind of laid out how each one is interconnected. And my mom and I mean, we're like, wow, this is really compelling. Um, and then, she mentioned mold being primary cause, endotoxins and actinos and things like that being also, could be part of all this. Um, and kind of a light bulb went off, and my mom was like, wow, like when you were younger, our first house had pretty bad like sewage issues that we didn't realize. And then also above your crib, we had this blanket that got condensation from the window. And I noticed when moving out, it had molded over. And of course, like didn't think anything of it of the time. Like, we're glad we're out of that house. We
Yeah.
moved into a new home, which thankfully was safe growing up. But um, and then I kind of put the pieces together. Oh, I went to this middle school, which was fantastic school, but I would bet you has a lot of water damage
Sure.
among other issues.
Sure.
Um, and then, and I was like, oh, I remember having a flare up of symptoms there. And anyway, and then, during my dance career, definitely we don't get paid much as dancers. So lived in some interesting places. Same as college, you kind of, those college apartments are a little bit questionable. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. And anyway, we still thought it was a little bit out there because we hadn't heard of anything like this. And we're like, mold, really?
Mhm.
Okay. Um, and we come home that night to my apartment in Denver because my mom, drove up from our small town to be here with me. So she was staying over, and we go into the apartment, and the smell of mold hits us like a stack of bricks.
Oh, geez.
And we're like, oh my gosh, I think she's onto something here. And we actually spent the night in a hotel because we both got so freaked out. And then, from there on, it was trying to, deal with learning how to deal with the apartment complexes and the maintenance people
Mm.
um, and personal relationships, right? I had a roommate at the time. Um, and it kind of snowballed into this whole journey that, I went through for 3 years, still going through, but in a lot better, knock on wood, of a space now. Um, but that's kind of how it all happened. Um, which I'm thankful we got to a diagnosis, like you said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's quite a process that they have, and it's so insightful. It's like what I heard you say is when you're in conventional medicine,
Yeah.
there's all these separate pillars of what they're looking at, and they have specialists, right? Like a foot doctor, a digestion doctor, a head doctor, an eye
Yeah.
doctor, teeth doctors,
Yeah.
but we forget it's all connected, and that one area can completely impact another area. That when you're having problems neurologically, likely there's something else going on in your body as well, whether it's digestion or circulation or,
Yeah.
it's just we forget that it's all connected, and functional medicine, along with labs, right, brings that holistic picture together, which is brilliant. It's a
Yeah,
great job.
absolutely.
Yeah, great, a great practice. Um, While you were walking through the process of healing, what were some of the more difficult things that you had to do?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the most difficult step was finding mold free, mold light
Hmm.
housing.
Hmm.
I mean, it took me 3 years
In
and
Colorado.
in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny because, I've been somewhat open about this journey at work just because, I've luckily had a manager who is just incredible. And, she's kind of was also just interested in this health space. But, a lot of the comments I would get, oh, you're moving mold in Colorado? Really? Like, oh,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah. Yep, it's everywhere. Um, But no, so I mean, it was all learning process, right? So I started off in an apartment with a roommate, right? And that hurts me score, I think, was like a 26. And this was a new build, like 2019. So it was 3 years old. And I thought, no way there can be mold in this place. I don't see any water damage. I don't like that. It's not gross place. Oh no, that was the worst I lived in. Um, and so, anyway, I ended up thankfully they let me break the lease of this one place. Um, I gave them a doctor's note, some other things. They let me off free and clear, which was great. Then I moved into a place with my new boyfriend at the time. Um, and figured I didn't really realize how prevalent mold was. And so I thought, oh,
Hmm.
this will be great, get out of that one-off weird place and into another one. Well, I start having symptoms again, I'm getting really itchy at night. I'm getting, hair loss, some weird like, the digestion, canker sore stuff, like just weird things that kind of come up. And so we tested that apartment and I think that one had a hertz me of 18. And then, so I'm like, okay, well, no problem. We'll just break the lease and get out of this one. Well, this apartment wasn't so kind. And that was a whole dynamic of dealing with the landlords, which just would not believe us. And we have like photos, which I just laugh at. They're dirt, it's all just dirt and dust. It's all dirt and dust. I'm like, no, 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 no. And I hired a professional mold inspector to come in, do like a third party examination, gave them the report. They were like dismissed it. So it was a bit of a nightmare and very stressful when you're stuck in a place and it's like you want to break the lease. You don't have a lot of funds to just kind of throw around, right?
Right.
And then you're also in a new relationship, which I think is another, just element of, just trying to, you're learning, your partner's learning. Um, so anyway, we ended up getting out of this place. I think we kind of had to wait a little bit until we felt like we could afford to get to a new spot. We moved to the new spot, and I did a lot more investigation in this new place. I did a lot more of like an inspection. I felt pretty good, and we moved in, and then I started having symptoms again.
Oh, geez.
And so I'm like, is this for real? And part of me just wanted to like, you know, ignorance is bliss. Like, I don't want to deal with this all over again. And so I started having symptoms. I got a pretty bad respiratory infection. And it just would not go away. And I'm like, what is going on? Well, go figures. We pull out the dishwasher, there's mold. And then I'm sure the HVAC unit had some mold. It was locked, but you can kind of see inside the cabinet and the vents. I was like, ooh, this looks like there's some past water damage here. So anyway, there was a lot of back and forth with the maintenance folks. Essentially, they remediated the dishwasher area, but they weren't going to touch the HVAC. It was going to be way too expensive for them.
Oh, gee.
So I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help my case, right? And so we ended up after, I would say about 8 months of them trying to remediate, us trying to negotiate with them to do it the right way, me doing like a small particle clean, trying to make the place work. We ended up breaking the lease. Thankfully, they let us out this time. Um, and we moved to completely out of the city, out of apartments to a newer build townhome in Arvada. And so that's kind of where we landed now. And prior to being in this townhome, I was like, I'm not moving again. So I actually hired a mold dog to come through and sniff it out. We got the seal of approval. So, and then since then, we've been in this place for maybe 6 months or over 6 months now. But I mean, feeling so much better. But it was a long journey to get there, multiple moves, a lot of stress on the relationship too. Though he was supportive, I'm so thankful for that. But it's still, you know, I kind of carried a lot of guilt for having to move us multiple times. And yeah, it's rough. That was definitely, I would say, the toughest challenge was just getting into a safe space.
Tell us a little bit about what it was like to work with the mole dog.
Yeah. Amazing. I cried when the mole dog came through because I was like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
this dog is like, dogs and animals are just the most like innocent, pure creatures. And just to have them like trained to protect people like this, I was just, it was very emotional. Um, but yeah, we had a gal who I think she's up in Fort Collins,
yep. I
um,
know.
Buddy, yeah.
Yeah.
And so she and Buddy kind of came through the townhome. The whole thing took maybe 30 minutes or so, and he alerted to a couple areas, but both those areas were pretty I mean, he alerts even the smallest amount
Yeah.
of mold. And so we felt pretty good based on what kind of areas he was alerting to, that there wasn't a big issue. Um, and and so yeah, and then it just made me feel so much safer, moving in here.
Yeah. Oh, that's phenomenal. That
Yeah.
dog knows he's doing good work. When
Yeah.
he shows up, he's like, I'm here to save the day.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
so cute. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, so there were, I want to talk a little bit about the little areas that you found and how did you address that? What did you do with that information after you got it?
Yeah. So one was like down in the garage. There's like a closet with, our hot water heater and a bunch of other things. And there's a little like drain on the bottom. And so he just alerted to that drain. And so we just kind of poured some stuff down there and no
Yeah.
problem. And then the other he alerted to the master bathroom um shower, like glass shower door. And at first I was a little concerned, but she had Buddy walk around to like the outside wall of the shower to make sure that it wasn't like he wasn't going to alert in that place, and he didn't. And so we really think it had to do with like the shower door has some like caulking, I guess,
Hmm.
that hadn't been cleaned in a while. So you can just kind of take it out and spray it with vinegar and clean it up.
Yeah.
So we felt comfortable, and just based on her experience too. I mean, she does this as her job. So she was like,
Yeah.
yeah, based on what I usually see, like I would feel comfortable moving into this home.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
so I felt pretty safe in doing so. And
That's
then since
wonderful.
then, we've definitely like, endotoxins, like tinos, like things like that. I think, that was also a concern, but it felt a little bit more surmountable. And, we had some, what I felt like was probably an endotoxin issue from from a shower drain, but we just poured some like green gobbler down it, and it was, hasn't resurfaced. Um, and I mean, I think also we're just in a place now where it's like, I can keep the windows open in the summertime, and it's better airflow and it's much more open. And I think that's just helped too, maybe mentally as well. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It's all
Yeah.
connected, right? Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I hear frequently from people is a fear of a shared wall. How did you feel about having a connected wall to another unit?
Yeah. Um, you know, we were an N unit, so I liked that.
Hmm.
So we only have one shared wall.
Yeah.
Um, and it was kind of like the only option, right? Like we're both in our 20s. We couldn't really afford like a single family home. The other choice was an apartment. An apartment, of course, has shared floors, walls, everything.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and so we're like, you know what? This is the best we got. And it's
Yeah.
newer, right? So it
Yeah.
wasn't brand new. I felt like, a few years to kind of see how, the home had some history, right? But not too much history. Um, and it was in a cute neighborhood, and it just kind of, we just found it by kind of happenstance in that way.
Yeah. I think it's so important for people to hear sometimes better is good,
Yes.
right? It's like taking that step upward to the next elevation. You've got less walls that are connected, which means less impact by other people. And maybe that shared wall doesn't have plumbing. Maybe that shared wall isn't going to ever have issues, right? And being able to, we have tools, right? We have thermal imaging cameras, we
Yeah.
have testing we can do. If something happens, you can just work with your neighbor to try to get it fixed, right?
Yeah.
But use your tools to stay in tune with it.
Yeah.
Um, what sort of actions are you taking to keep your home healthy?
Yes. We clean it. We have water sensors underneath, certain appliances and things like that. Put rubber mats under the sink. Um, just I'm very, we spill water, I want to wipe it up quick. I think I'm just kind of very aware of a lot more than I ever used to be of kind of what's going on in the home, making sure it's clean, it's safe. Um, I think that's kind of how we've approached it. I'm also trying not to, and in this process, I think one of the hardest things is, right, you get a lot of anxiety and paranoia around safety and feeling safe and having your living space be perfect.
Yeah,
And I mean, I used to be a ballet dancer. I'm all about perfection. So I've really tried to kind of scale that back a bit. Um, and so part of me too has been just it's a process of letting go a bit and finding the things that make high impact, that prevent big water leaks or issues from happening, like the water sensors, like kind of monitoring pulling out the fridge every once in a while and just
yeah,
checking back there.
yeah,
But I also like it's a bit of a process of letting go too.
yeah,
And just not everything is going to be perfectly clean, and I'm not going to be able to vacuum every single day. That's
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Completely understandable. And something I've experienced as well and still experience sometimes. It comes up every once in a while and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
breathe. It's going to be
Well,
okay.
and
Yeah.
we had a moment too where I was like, wow, this is an extreme reaction. But we were away for a week. And I came back prior to my boyfriend, and I came back and the power was off in the house. And it was some issue with the property management company. But essentially the power had been off for about a day and a half.
Okay.
And so I come upstairs and I was like, I see a big puddle of water by the fridge.
Yep.
And I just about lost my mind. I
Yep.
was like, break down into tears, sobbing, crying, like world is ending. Might as well pack up all my stuff and, hit the road again. But I realized after investigating, oh, it's just a little leakage from from the fridge. That makes sense, from the little ice block in the water dispenser. Okay. Let's wipe it up. It hasn't gotten to the walls. It's just this little small area on the floor. And I was like, okay, this is okay. It's okay. It's okay. Um, but that was just like an extreme reaction. I think it's still something I'm getting over, is like,
Yeah.
just when is um when is the shoe gonna drop? When is something gonna happen? Um, but yeah, trying to kind of let go a little bit.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it takes time, being patient with yourself. It's traumatic when
Yeah.
you realize, and I think that was the biggest event for you, if I'm understanding correctly, is when the information came in that it's your environment causing this.
Yeah.
It really, and then you dive into information, right? Of what does that mean? Where is it coming from? What do I need to do in order to make it better? It's never that easy. It's complicated and convoluted, and there's horror stories everywhere you turn. And
Yes.
it's just it feels like all the control gets taken away. That's my
Yeah.
experience, right? And then trying to figure out where you have control and
Yeah.
trusting in yourself to have the tools in place that it's going to be okay. It sounds like you're doing everything perfectly. And you have the bells and whistles, the little water alarms are enormous. The mats are enormous because it will push us to see it, right? It
Yeah.
pushes the water where we can see it before it causes damage.
Yes.
Um, you're doing a good job.
Yeah. Well,
That's
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
In reflection, what do you feel like was your strongest tool? I feel like functional medicine plays a role, but what's something that you did that you're just so glad that you did, you wish you would have done it earlier?
Oh. Well, definitely functional medicine. I would say that. Um, you know, in terms of tactical tools, I noticed also an immediate change, only at least on the digestion end of things, when I got tested for food sensitivities, which for a long time I thought, oh, I don't even know if this is a real thing. Um,
Mm,
but they tested me, and I had been on many diets over the years just to try to figure it out. I thought, oh, maybe it's gluten, so I went gluten-free for a while. Maybe it's dairy, I went dairy and gluten-free for a while. Never really made a difference. But when I got tested, I realized that I was reacting, my gut was reacting to so many different things. And
hmm
so I cut out a lot, which was really tough. I was really nervous about it, just given my history of eating disorders. Um, but I kind of had since I have gone to a much better place with that in life. And so, I really just took as like, this is a prescription from my doctor. And
Yeah.
so cut out dairy, gluten, soy, sesame, yeast, oats, rice, eggs, um, all the things that, of course, are so good and yummy to eat. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I went on a pretty serious, I took it very seriously. And I went on that diet for, it really was about 2.5 years until I got into a place that I felt better. And then I retested, and now I have a lot of those foods back. Um, but that was like an immediate change. I cut out those foods, and a week later, my digestion was better than it had been in probably 10 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
So it was an immediate reaction. And it was tough because there's definitely times where I'm like, I don't know what to eat for dinner. I have, and my boyfriend was always supportive and had ideas, and he's like, don't remember, like, I think he always said, which was really sweet, but, I would complain about not being able to eat and just feeling so guilty and having all these weird issues and having to take my supplements and all the weird things that you have to do to kind of keep your body operating, not even just,
Yeah.
thriving, but just operating.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, 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 you're not broken. You just require different care instructions. Um,
Oh, I love that.
and he's a car guy too. And he was like, it's like some cars take gasoline, some take diesel, and you're a diesel engine.
Oh, I love that. That's so
I'm
good.
like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But I think that was a big difference maker was just food and diet.
Yeah.
And I also learned a lot through that, the things that are labeled as healthy and you look at the label and you're like, what the heck? Soy lecithin and all sorts of weird stuff in it. Now I'm much more focused on, okay, am I eating just whole foods? I know what's what.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a big difference maker. I was on a lot of supplements. I think that helped, right? Certainly. Um, and then I think a big thing too, and something I'm still grappling with is just kind of forming a new relationship with oneself and one's not only physical self, but kind of one's being, I guess.
Mm.
I've always been very much a high achiever. You know, I've with ballet, with college, with my profession, and I think I've gotten a lot better at just creating a bit more boundaries, and also just creating kind of trying to decrease the stress levels, right? And gaining a bit more perspective there. I think that's also just helped immensely with just kind of redefining one's relationship with oneself.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Shifting the map a little bit, changing a
Yeah.
little bit about what it looks like, what success looks like,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because, yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
love that. If you were to offer insights to someone, what would be the key pieces that you want them to know, whether they are on the journey or not, like they are just listening because this is interesting, right?
Oh gosh. Um, well, that's a really good question. Well, I think the biggest thing is you're not alone. I
Mm.
remember feeling pretty alone for a lot of the process and just even before I knew I had CIRS. When you're young and you're dealing with all these random health issues that your peers aren't, I definitely felt like I was almost kind of wasting my youth almost.
Mm.
And I just felt like I was struggling so much throughout all this time. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's okay.
And like a time of life where a lot of people are, this is kind of like their peak physical state. Um, and so I think I also realize there's a lot of young people with health struggles as well that maybe I don't see. And so I think knowing that you're not alone wherever you are in life has really helped, and that there's a community of people who, are going through similar things. Um, I think too, I definitely went through a period where I'm like, am I ever going to heal? Is this ever really possible? Am I just going to be moving from mold place to a mold place? And I'm just, this is going to be the reality of life. And I'm really glad I didn't ever accept that. Throughout the healing journey and prior to not really understanding mold and CIRS, I'm really glad that, I really hope that people don't just accept feeling subpar, um, that there really is a way to heal. And that we're just like our bodies are just very, very powerful healing mechanisms. They want to heal. Um, and so I think that's another big piece of it as well, is that there's a community out there and your body will heal. It wants to heal.
I'm writing that down. The language that you use around that is perfect. The when we can give it the tools that it needs, our
Yeah.
bodies are miraculous, what they're capable of doing. It's amazing. One of the things as you were sharing about the different tools that helped you while you were working through functional medicine and the diet changes and things like that, it was temporary.
Yes.
It's not something
Yeah.
that some people do have to, whether they're allergic, right? Or their body just doesn't digest gluten ever, right?
Yeah.
Like celiac. Some people do have to make permanent changes, but a
Yeah.
lot of the changes in the front end that we have to make is about settling our body down,
Yeah.
letting it know that it's safe, and giving it the space that it needs to do what it does,
Yeah.
right? And then some of those things can go away and it's not as restrictive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think even like there was a turning point. I love to travel, but I was always really nervous too, because
Mhm.
no matter, I mean, I would get walked up no matter where I went. And there was like a 2 week trip to Italy I took with my mom, and I did not go number two once the entire two
Oh
weeks.
my
And
gosh.
it was horrible. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of my past experience with travel is, it's fun, but I'm always going to be incredibly uncomfortable. And so I went on a trip. It was my first big international trip with my boyfriend to visit his family in Hungary. And I was very nervous about it, extremely anxious. And it wasn't perfect, but I I realized I was like, okay, I'm eating things I shouldn't eat that are normally not in my diet back at home. Um, but I'm going. It's okay. Like I'm feeling relatively, to 2 years ago, I'm feeling a lot better. And so, like you said, it's not a forever thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just a for now situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Powerful words. And there's so much hope in your story. I'm so glad that you got help with through the functional medicine, that you came to that point. I'm so glad that you really set the intention in yourself to not stay where you were and to find a place that's healthier. And, you just keep going. Um, I'm so grateful for you sharing your story. And I am going to just invite people to, if they have questions or, want to be able to ask you directly, to comment below this video. And, maybe you'll be able to offer some insight or support for them. It's wonderful that you are where you are now. And I wish you continued healing and many more tools and opportunities in front of you to now someday it's going to feel like this little shadow behind you that, it's not going to be front and center like it is sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just grateful. Thank you so much for sharing, Sophia.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tammy, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good morning. Welcome back to Mold Stories. I'm Tammy, your favorite local neighborhood realtor located in Colorado, and I am a certified conscious healthy home real estate agent. And I've been driven to share stories of my community of fellow mold impacted wonderful humans who are dealing with this uphill battle of what's been going on in buildings. One of the niches that I've taken on this last year, as you've been following these stories, is realizing that I am helping people who are environmentally sensitive. And this has uncovered so many things. It's so important to share these stories. If you have questions at the end of this video, feel free to post them below. We are happy to answer them, or reach out to me directly. I'll make sure that your questions get answered. Today, I have Sophia Mellsop joining me, and I'm so excited to hear her story. These stories are challenging, and I just ask you to listen with an open heart. Know that what's shared here is not meant to be prescriptive. This is to give you hope, to give you insight, and to help you make choices in your journey of living in a building be empowering, feel empowered and be able to make choices that keep you safe. Sophia, would you start by telling us just a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thank you so much, Tammy, for doing this. I wish I had stories to hear as I kind of went through this journey. But yeah, so I'm native to Colorado. I grew up in a very small town, southwest corner of the state. Um, I grew up through this town, went 2 years in high school, and then I actually